Hey guys, it's Mike here, and in this video I want to discuss a topic that ties a little bit into a previous topic I've discussed on my channel in the past, as well as a question I've received a number of times throughout my time on YouTube. That would have to be, what exactly happened to Mastered Super Saiyan after the Cell Saga and the Cell games of Dragon Ball Z? Now, a lot of you might be asking the question in response to that question of, well, what do you mean? What happened to it? Don't the characters still have it afterward? Well, yes and no. Because the fact that it does seem that Mastered Super Saiyan, or Grade 4, seems to take on, well, a different form of Super Saiyan afterward. Because in the story, Mastered Super Saiyan, when we are first introduced to it, is quite a bit different in appearance than it is afterward. More specifically, Goku and Gohan are always in it. And yet, after the Cell games and onward, it seems to be not the case, really, ever again. But why exactly is that? Well, in this video, I'm going to be using Akira Toriyama's own manga that he wrote all the way back, starting in the 1984 year of our Lord, going into 1995, and taking it from there, from the writer's own pen, and seeing exactly what might have occurred to cause this change from the story in universe, also out. So let's get into that right now. And if you guys are interested in seeing videos like this in the future, subscribe, and also let me know your own thoughts down below as I go through the video as to what you think happened. But let me switch over my screen and we'll start looking at the manga together and go straight through what Toriyama gave us together. And make sure to take some sips of water and whatever other beverages you have along the way, as I say many of the things I like to say in these videos, as I often do. I'm sure you guys know some of the words. But as we have right here, we began the reason why Goku and Gohan and all the other characters really started their, let's say, arms race, as it were, especially those arms. They were pretty jacked back then. I'm not quite there yet. In terms of when it came to establishing a greater form of Super Saiyan and a greater level of strength with regard to having to fight against increasingly higher levels of power with the androids and Cell when they went into the hyperbolic time chamber or room of spirit and time. We saw that Trunks, Toronkasu rather, from the future, was fighting against the perfect or Kanzen Cell, as he, the bio-android, had absorbed android 17 and 18, becoming perfect, complete. And Trunks, in his grade 2, was ascending to his grade 3, or Ultra Super Saiyan, as the dub fans like to refer to it as. And I had actually discussed recently in another video you guys can see on my channel, whether or not Trunks and Vegeta were actually grade 2, 3, or maybe even Mastered Super Saiyan in the Cell games, so you guys can see in the top right corner. Now, also, as we saw here, Trunks, despite being incredibly strong and Cell even complimenting him and saying that he was stronger than him, whether or not that's really accurate is up in the air, as we could see here. The fact is that we saw that Goku was able to do the exact same thing here, becoming a grade 2 and then ascending even further beyond. Well, not, Super Saiyan 3 quite just yet, but grade 3, as he became that bulked up Ultra Super Saiyan, the grade 3, right here. And he was so jacked, so strong, going Super Saiyan Hulk, legendary Super Saiyan, before, the Broly movie with Koyama just being like, you know what, I'm just going to rip this off. And, what we saw, trying to channel Trunks when he didn't even know Trunks had it quite just yet. But Trunks, as we saw here, wasn't even able to land a hit on Cell in the manga version. The anime, he got a couple shots in, but as he continued to bulk up, he couldn't do anything. In Toriyama's version, he was like, nah, you're not doing anything at all, Trunks. We're going to show you to be completely useless one more time against yet another android. Another Jinzo Ningen, killing machines, as my good friend Blackenfist used to say. Rest in peace to his channel. I hope it comes back from the future one more time. And then Goku starts to explain exactly why they began to master the forms, as he says that the grade, really, this probably applies to both of them, you know, the reason why they never started to, or continue to use 2 in general anymore, as well as 3, where he says that the new mass makes him a lot stronger, but also slows him down, and as a result, he might be stronger, but he won't be able to hit his opponent. It also wastes his energy. And so, all in all, the regular Super Saiyan is more balanced. I'm guessing that grade 2 probably also wastes a lot of his energy, which is why he didn't keep using it. And so the regular Super Saiyan, being more balanced, is what they are going to go forward with. As he says, they're going to continue to stay in that form all the time and get used to it like it's their normal state, and get rid of the restless feeling that they have when they are a Super Saiyan. So basically the anger, the rage, the constant anxiety that they're in all the time, that heightened state that they're always feeling, they want to completely eliminate that, be calm and serene, like calm waters on a gentle lake, rather than, you know, the torrents of the open seas during a hurricane, you know? So as a result, this is what they end up doing. By their training, starting over from basics and staying in that all the time, eventually allowing them to master it in the grade 4 perfected Kanzen Super Saiyan. I just made that name up, but I think it sounds pretty cool. The perfect Super Saiyan against the perfect bio android. Now, isn't that great theming, Toriyama? Hey, I don't even know if you thought of that. I'm sure you did, because this arc, brilliant themes, best of them all. But still, nonetheless, what do we see here? Goku and Gohan emerge with this perfected version of Super Saiyan, and the entire rest of the arc, well, for the most part, they stay in this form. And all the time they're in the form. As we see, Vegeta points out that he can't even really sense their ki coming from them. You know, they are very calm. They're not really that powered up. In the anime, they go even more in depth when they're eating the food, you know, even more than we're seeing on screen, them doing the mundane things. You know, they go a little bit into that in the anime. We do see Goku power up, you know, to half his power here and impress everyone. But we do see them do a little bit more, where they have a picnic in Toriyama's manga that inspires some of the scenes from the anime. You know, right here, where we see this right here, Goku driving, you know, and then things like that. So we do see a little bit more of the mundanity in that sense, but nonetheless, we don't really see much other than, you know, some of the fighting in regard to everything. It's really that they just stay in here and then eventually they power up, not wasting any of their energy, and thus, you know, basically containing as much power in their body as possible so they don't have to transform and wasting that energy in the process. However, for whatever reason, this doesn't really continue into the next arc. And so what we end up seeing after this is that come the Buu Saga, for example, what ends up happening? Well, in the Buu Saga, moving forward, it seems that no one stays in this form anymore. What do we see? All the Saiyans, Gohan, Goten, Trunks, all of them have Super Saiyan, and yet none of them stay in the form. Gohan, the first time we see when he is a Super Saiyan, and we have one of the rare examples of seeing him at this point in the series in the Cell games in his base, which I'll get a little bit more into that soon, actually. You know, he is going around his base form, he's running around, and he transforms into a Super Saiyan, actually. There's no big expenditure of energy we see shooting out from him, but he turns into a Super Saiyan anyway from his base. He isn't staying in it in his blonde hair and his aqua blue eyes all the time. Same thing when we see that Goku comes back from the afterlife. Well, he has his black hair, his base. And so does Vegeta, interestingly. We also see, again, Gohan, Goten, Trunks going around. They're Super Saiyans. They're walking, or they're not as Super Saiyans, but they can become Super Saiyans at 7 and 8 years old. Roughly, of course, because the time skip is very ambiguous, as well as Gohan's age. They say he's 16, as you could see right here in this panel. Toriyama says that here, but the math is a little bit iffy there, as I've talked about in a video you guys can see on my channel. Top right corner, Gohan's true age. I would check that out because it is quite a bit strange as to how he got 16. A lot of people say Gohan was 9 in the Cell games. The math doesn't really make sense there, but hey, you can leave that for the comments in that video, or hey, give me some more engagement here. But either way, fact of the matter is, Gohan and everyone else, when they're in the Buu Saga, when they become Super Saiyans here, well, they transform into Super Saiyans, as we see Goku doing here, as we see Vegeta doing, as we see Gohan doing here. And as the story progresses, well, Super Saiyan really becomes more kind of ambiguous in terms of, what form certain characters are taking on as it goes on. For example, Gohan especially. There are many points during this arc where we don't know what form Gohan is really even on. There's so many debates that people have had over time. Is Gohan a Super Saiyan when he fights Dabura? Is he a Super Saiyan 2? Like right here in this scene especially, is Gohan a Super Saiyan 2 when he's gearing up to fight against Dabura alongside Supreme Kai? When he goes to attack Buu Shell, is he a Super Saiyan 2 here? A lot of people say no because he doesn't have the lightning surrounding him, and yet his hair is indicative of a Super Saiyan 2. His extremely jagged shooting up aura everywhere is indicative of a Super Saiyan 2. Not just that, but additionally, afterward, Supreme Kai says that Gohan showed him more strength than ever before, and also, this is also Supreme Kai saying that, just how incredibly impressed he is by his power, and Dabura jumps right out of the way of his attack, despite the fact that, Dabura realistically would be stronger than the power that, Supreme Kai was able to stop earlier. And there's so many other things I've discussed in other videos in the past, like, for example, again, another video I'll point to in the top right corner, because I love to do that, take another shot, guys, where I said, is Gohan a Super Saiyan 2 when he fought against Dabura? Which you could definitely make the argument right here he is, because of the fact that Toriyama just, seems to make it really ambiguous whether or not he is during scenes just like this, because the fact that perhaps he's using lightning instead of to denote Super Saiyan 2, rather to denote the incredible strength of characters at the time, like Goku and Vegeta when they're Super Saiyan 2s, to show just how strong they are, or maybe because Gohan is a very weakened Super Saiyan 2, barely on the verge of being one, you could say perhaps, that he doesn't have lightning at this point for whatever reason, or Toriyama's just saying he is Super Saiyan 2, but, for Gohan, he's, just not really the emphasis anymore. There's lots of different things you can make the argument, and I've already done that. Either way, things become more ambiguous. You even have Goten Trunks. It's like, Goten Trunks, are they mastered Super Saiyans? There's that question too. I mean, Goten's hair, when we look at it, looks very reminiscent of Goku's when he first became a Super Saiyan really early on Namek, for example, when he fought against Frieza, and their powers are really incredible. Like Piccolo, this is a guy who at this point is probably somewhat comparable to regular Perfect Cell when he fought against, like Trunks that I just shown before in that previous video, and, even Goku from the last arc before he became super perfect and stuff like that. This is 7 years after Piccolo had gone to the time chamber and was fighting against the Cell Juniors, who are way more powerful than semi-perfect Cell, and we saw how strong Goten Trunks were in that other video you guys can see in the top right corner, of how strong, just why Goten Trunks' power is so underrated by the fan base. And, when they turn to Gotenks, they could become a Super Saiyan 3. So are they mastered Super Saiyans? And if so, why do they walk around their base forms? Is there any reason why they wouldn't just all be blonde hair all the time? It's Strange, unless there is precedent for this. Well, maybe there is. Like, for example, before I get to an example in this arc, let's go back to the end of the Cell games. Let's go to a couple characters, which are ones I mentioned in a video I brought up earlier, which would be with regard to these characters right here, Vegeta and Trunks. Now, a lot of people have wondered over the years if Vegeta and Trunks actually are mastered Super Saiyans. Now, as we see the fight go on in this story, we see Goku fights against Vegeta, or, well, we saw that earlier, actually. We saw that Goku, eventually gives the fight over to Gohan. Now, when this happens, what occurs? Well, during that, before Gohan becomes a Super Saiyan Su, as they say in the Japanese, what happens? Well, Gohan, when he does that, he is not turning into that form immediately. Instead, well, he needs some coaxing. And when that occurs, he has the Cell Jr. summoned by Cell through his tail, birthed asexually through the programming instilled within him. At that point, we see that Vegeta and Trunks transform for the first time. Now, when that occurs, Vegeta and Trunks, well, they become Super Saiyans, but their forms, as we could see, for example, with Vegeta right here, are not actually indicative necessarily of someone who is of a grade 2 or grade 3. Rather, they look more like a, well, regular or mastered Super Saiyan. And we see this continue as the story goes on. Like, for example, when Gohan, I know I'm flashing through this super fast, but when Gohan, watches, instead of deflecting the attack from Cell, when he shows up, he, instead of pushing Trunks out of the way or something like that, he sees Cell, a hole get put in some Trunks. We see that Vegeta powers up and goes to attack Cell, and he doesn't become a grade 2. Instead, he seems to, again, just stay in this form that looks like Super Saiyan. Additionally, after everything happens here with the Kamehameha clash, where Goku is dead during the Kamehameha clash after he died, well, what form's Goku in when he's dead? He's in his base. Well, we know that Goku, when he's dead, he could transform, right? So why is Goku in his base? Why isn't he in his Super Saiyan, his mastered form, if he could just be in his mastered Super Saiyan all the time, right? Like, what's the point of being in his base? Is it just because he's not going to be, I don't know, in a battle? Well, additionally, what happens after the battle comes to its conclusion? Well, we see that Gohan, he kills Cell, and despite the fact that, being in Super Saiyan and Master doesn't really require that much energy, and in the anime version, they can even sleep in that form. In the manga, they say that they actually don't really use it when they're sleeping, but nonetheless, we see that Gohan, he drops out of the form after he stops using the Kamehameha, and then he falls on the ground, and he's tired, but he's not in the form anymore. So it shows that in this version of the story, they don't always stay in Super Saiyan, even in the Cell Saga. Gohan is in his base in the Cell Saga, in the Cell games and everything like that, and he just doesn't always have to stay in it. He just chooses not to because, well, probably because there isn't a need to. It's the battle isn't raging anymore. It's no longer being fought. And, well, what happens in the Buu Saga? Well, 7 years later, flashes forward, and what has occurred? As we see, what does it say right here? With Goku's sacrifice, the Earth lives in peace one more time. And so we see that 7 years have passed, and Gohan is going about his normal life. He doesn't need to be Mastered Super Saiyan anymore. Like, he could be theoretically if he wanted to be, but he doesn't need to be. When we see Vegeta again, he's training in the time, or the gravity chamber rather, but again, he doesn't really need to be in higher, or to be a Super Saiyan normally when he's walking around like this. And the same thing, I guess, could be said for Goten Trunks. So again, we don't really need that to be the case, or they, I guess, don't need it to be the case, even though it would look cool, I suppose, if they were. And there's another in-universe rationale as to why they might not be that. That comes at the end, or at least the closing section of the second act, and really at least near the start of the third, maybe near the start of the fourth act, because these arcs can be very long, especially the Buu Saga. And especially the Buu Saga. And that comes right here. When Goku is going to use the Potara with Gohan at this point, before everything with Vegito, and we see that he's going to the Earth to fuse with them, and he asks the Elder Supreme Kai if he should become a Super Saiyan before he does it. What does Supreme Kai say? No, you'll stay that way forever. Super Saiyan would be too harsh on your body. It would shorten your lifespan. You'll still be able to turn into a Super Saiyan after the fusion, but you may not need to. Which, yeah, theoretically he wouldn't, because, just the merger of them at base would be enough to obliterate him. As, we see with just the base Vegito in the anime version stomps Buhan, So in the manga version, making Bukan, or what, whatever you'd want to call him. Like, some people would say Gokan. There's a good reason they would never call him that. I'm not going to get into that in this video, but making him not that name a couple times stronger would easily destroy Gotenks Buu, Bootanks, Buikalo especially, without becoming a Super Saiyan. But the fact is, as he says right here, it would shorten their lifespan. So again, it seems like there might be some indication that Toriyama is giving us that using Super Saiyan at this point would shorten their lifespan. It drains it to some degree. Being in it, Gohan passed out basically and was so drained that he couldn't maintain the form anymore. As I mentioned, that video from earlier, Vegeta and Trunks might just not have wanted to use the form at all times, even if they did have grade 4 in the Cell games, because of the fact that it still had some degree of drain. And, so there's a lot of things that play a factor into them not always being in the form after the Cell games, even though it was cool to always have them walking around, have Super Saiyan as the base. Even though it was a cool evolution of their characters and the story, almost like Super Saiyan 4 would have been a cool way in GT and onward of them always walking around and being like that, like a real way of like changing the appearance of the characters and making them move forward, and like a visual way of doing it rather than them just like being in their base and stuff and maintaining the status quo. I feel like that's kind of the reason why in universe that's the case. Out of universe, it's probably like they were, maybe Toriyama necessarily didn't want to have it always them in Super Saiyan. Maybe Toei and Shueisha are like, nah, don't do that. Just have them be in their base. It'll be easier to sell merchandise that way. If we want to like do this or that, or, sell like, this outfit like this outfit with this transformation, and stuff like that. It would have saved the money on ink, but either way, I think that there are different factors there and then, but also Toriyama seemed like he was getting away from the concept of transformations in the Buu Saga, which unfortunately they kept going back to the well again and again and again when they kept revisiting this series after this arc. But the idea is that with Ultimate, for example, transformations seem like they were being done away with. At the end of the story, Goku doesn't transform when he fights Oob. He flies away with this new human character who is the reincarnation of the transforming villain, who doesn't seem like he'll ever transform again because now he's a human. So that seemed like it was the idea, but nonetheless, that kind of seems like the direction they were going in. And I think those are the ideas behind why Mastered Super Saiyan changed and where it kind of went, which is not really anywhere at all, aside from the aesthetics and the look of it, at all times. But let me know your own thoughts down below in the comments, guys. What do you think about this concept? Do you think that, that's the reason for it? Or do you think maybe there's something else I didn't mention? Maybe there's a guide entry or something bring up. Like I usually say in these videos, I look at the manga, I look at, the anime, I look at what we actually see on screen in the panel, what the characters say, what's actually shown to us. That's first and foremost for me, especially the manga. That's the primary canon, the primary continuity that I always go by, that Toriyama himself wrote down, drew, and illustrated every week. That is the first thing that everything comes by and everything is adapted by. And that for me is always the primera numero uno Ichiban. So let me know what you think. Subscribe, enable notifications, and stick around because there's a lot more to come in the future.
Yeah, and you better subscribe.